What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Trailer Park Live here on the 2nd Street Marvel. Thank you all so much for being here today. Now, I hope you are all doing very, very well. As you can see, I've got a couple things I want to talk about today. Just some different things. All of a sudden, people are starting to notice things going on out there in the. Oh, sorry, my volume's a little low there. Things going on out there in the Marvel world that people are just now. Oh, God dang it. Sorry, I'm having some problems here with some of my equipment. Um, but yeah, as you can see by the thumbnail there, I got a couple of things I want to talk about, and they're things I've actually talked about here on the channel before. And most of those actually involve, phase four, exactly where it's going, phase five, what are we getting out of this? People are starting to speculate a lot and talk about the Captain. Okay, this thing's gonna make me mad. People are starting to speculate exactly what this Falcon and Winter Soldier series is going to be. As you can see, there are obviously some people taking advantage of I don't know, I guess clickbait headlines. Obviously, we've seen lately there's a lot of people all of a sudden talking about Blade being Muslim in the MCU going into phase 5. If that's even going to be a phase 5 film. As far as we know, it could be a phase 4 film. We don't really know yet. But a lot of people talking about that, and a lot of these rumors basically start from people seeking attention. Now, I happen to know that the one about Blade being Muslim in the MCU was actually started by just some dude that has like a handful of followers on Twitter. And by no means does that actually make this person uncredible or anything like that. I mean, we don't know the guy, but it's just some guy who went out there and made a post. Somebody like me, like you. It's really hard to say exactly if this person is credible and has any kind of information, but I didn't really dig into their information on Twitter. I didn't go check out their page. I just know that that's ultimately what it seemed like to me. It was just somebody seeking attention. And now I do notice that somebody has actually been even talking lately. Another news story people are talking about is this Captain or this Falcon and Winter Soldier series that's getting ready to come up, and basically the government not wanting to for Sam Wilson to be the new Captain America, and people are starting to talk about the. And people have been talking about this the whole time anyway, but people are starting to react to this, talking about the MCU going woke and stuff like that. And, it's just kind of funny speculation in the first place. I mean, obviously we can see that they are doing things a little bit differently than they ever did in the comic books. But, as you can see by my shirt here, it's respect the source material. And it seems like, they always kind of pick and choose what exactly of the source material they're going to pick and choose and respect the source material from, as we can obviously see with Thor Love and Thunder getting ready to come up, where we're going to be getting the Jane Foster Thor that we've seen in the Mighty Thor comic line. And now they have actually went through and kind of use that Jane Foster character to once again, in the comics to, I don't know if you'd say cause controversy, but they gave her a new title as Jane Foster Valkyrie. And while this isn't necessarily, as a lot of people would say, the tokenizing of a character, as Valkyrie was they are the female warriors of Asgard and things like that. So, they, I guess maybe taking a step in the right direction, although for me, it actually seems absolutely silly, and I've got a review on that Jane Foster Thor getting ready to come out. But the thing that gets me here is a lot of people are saying, oh, like they're kind of destroying or not respecting the source material from the comics. And like I said, they're actually, we can see they're actually starting to pick and choose what they do and don't want to use from the actual comics, what they actually do and don't want to adapt or change. And that brings up, this Falcon and Winter Soldier series, like I said, where people are starting to speculate that, oh, hey, like, basically this story about the government not wanting Sam Wilson to be Captain America is nothing new. This actually happened in the comics, and people basically kind of starting to take off with this whole speculation and everything, and which is fine. But really, again, you see a whole lot of articles and everything out there talking about it, and this story was actually brought about on. God, I think where the story started to blow up at was where people really started to run with it was some comments made by Mark Bernardi, the gentleman who does the Fat Man on Batman with Kevin Smith on his channel there, where he was talking basically about this exact same thing, and this is exactly what happened in the comic books, people. There's people out there saying, "Oh, this is ridiculous," and all this and that. Like, that's exactly what happened in the comic books. Hashtag not my captain. Okay, that's exactly what happened, and that's why I, for some reason, I kind of feel like this might happen in the MCU, but I really almost at the same time kind of doubt it because they pick and choose what they're going to do. And this actually happens to be a line where I feel like they actually might go there. But again, this story was started by a gentleman who, I'm sure he knows people in the industry. He's a writer. I believe he's done some producing and things like that as well. So it's not like he's somebody who completely don't know. He's obviously reads comic books and things like that, and that's what would lead him to make statements like he did in this story that people are starting to run with. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're all here to speculate. I think that's definitely one thing that a lot of people like myself here on YouTube and just other people who like to add their commentary and toss their 2 cents in like to do is speculate about maybe the future of the MCU and exactly what we're going to be getting. But what's interesting to me is a lot of people are running with this, like they have no clue, like, oh my God, what's going on? They have no clue about it, but you know and I could go through, and when I say that a lot of these people who are acting surprised are normies, I don't mean that in a bad sense. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a normie. The only thing wrong with being a normie is being one of those normies who acts like you know it all. Now, I can tell you for me, like I was a normie up until about a year ago. I hadn't done any reading of any comic books in a long time, but you know what? Like, I kind of got intrigued by some of the stories that were going on in the comic books, some of the things I had heard of, and I was like, you know what? I want to start reading again. So I went out to my local comic book shop and started picking up some books, and this particular storyline is actually one that got me interested back into reading comics. Was the whole Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, and Steve Rogers being a Hydra agent and things like that. And that's pretty much what got me back into reading. And these are stories that I actually, once I read them and kind of maybe not understood the full scope of what was going on, but understood the scope of exactly what all this story was and everything happening. And it's crazy because I've been wanting to see these things come to life on the big screen for a while, and it seems like they're getting ready to. I've said for a while that you can go back and watch some of my past videos. It seems like they have been leading up to, we just got Civil War already in the movies. We got Captain America Civil War, and that came at the same time they were doing Civil War 2 in the comic books. And, I've seen some speculation, and obviously we see the comics do play into the MCU somewhat, obviously. And, people saying like, oh, they like Civil War 2 was just like a crappy story, and it seemed like it was just forced, where Marvel was just basically saying like hey guys, we got the Civil War movie getting ready to come out. We need to put out some comic books that are following that same tune, I guess you could say, where like let's play on this thing that's going on in the MCU so we can get our readership up and things like that. And a lot of people didn't like Civil War 2. I can tell you for one, I can't say that I disliked it. It's just, at the time, the event seemed really big. I read almost nearly every single tie-in for that and everything, and it was just kind of big and all-encompassing, and I don't know that I necessarily hated it, but I don't know that I completely liked it either. It's just, for me, what it was the tying in of the stories that goes along with the whole lore that was going on in Marvel Comics, and kind of like what it led to up to Secret Empire and things like that. So now again, people are starting to make this speculation about Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, and we're thinking that's the journey that he's going to be going on with the Winter Soldier here through this series, as he basically comes to terms with being Captain America, being his own version, I guess you could say, of Captain America. There's people out there, saying right now like, oh, he's just a regular guy. He just, he don't have the super soldier serum or anything. That he's just a normal guy. Well, in the comic books, Steve Rogers specifically picked him just the same as he did here in the movie, and he had different reasons why, and eventually some things happen, and that unfolds, and it actually kind of plays to his advantage as well. And that's what I want to get into. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is there's a lot of speculation going around, especially after Spider-Man: Far From Home. We see, and spoilers, in case you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, I almost don't even know what you're doing watching a lot of YouTube videos where people are speculating about things if you don't want things to be spoiled or you don't want to hear some of these spoilers. But anyway, neither here nor there, I guess. We see at the end of Spider-Man: Far From Home, in the post-credit scene where Spider-Man's identity gets exposed, or Peter Parker's identity gets exposed. And we even see at the very end that Nick Fury and Maria Hill are Skrulls, basically, at that time. And now there's speculation going around that Maria Hill's probably been a Skrull the whole time. And how long has Nick Fury been a Skrull? And it's really hard to say. I've seen a video recently. People are talking about Phase 5 going forward and some of the movies that might be coming out, and one of those just happens to be Captain Marvel: Secret Invasion. And whether that's true or not, I guess only time will tell. But it does make sense. It does make sense that people would speculate about this. Now, one thing that I noticed I don't see anybody talking about. I'm like, am I the only one that noticed this line? I mean, we got to take all these little subtle hints, especially as many speculators as there are out there, taking these little subtle hints and blowing the, how would you say, oh man, what is it? What is that saying? Anthills in mountains, anthills into mountains, something. I don't know. I'm not up on modern philosophy, but the point is we take all these little things going on and we begin to speculate on them and see how it is going forward in the movies, and what we think is going to happen in the MCU. And to me, that's exactly what is going on here with this. And I think just maybe a whole lot of people obviously don't read comic books, or maybe haven't read these particular storylines and things like that. But the one thing I noticed in the movie that nobody seems to be talking about is when it's revealed that Nick Fury and Maria Hill were Skrulls. When he's actually sitting there talking on the phone to Nick Fury, probably wasn't even a phone, honestly, but when he's sitting there communicating with Nick Fury, he says, people started asking about he's talking about delivering the glasses and all that stuff, and he goes, people started talking about the Avengers. I didn't know what to tell them. And, that's the thing right there, A lot of people aren't talking about that. I mean, why not? Because he mentions the Avengers. People are asking about the Avengers, and what am I supposed to tell them? And, I can't remember the exact line that Nick Fury uses, but basically it's kind of like, oh, well, whatever. And here's the thing is, nobody's questioning, what did he mean by that? Where are the Avengers? What was he going to tell them? What does he mean by that line? Right? How come nobody's asking this? Everybody's just thinking like, oh, it's just a throwaway line. And the thing is where are the Avengers? What are they doing? And we see Nick Fury is in space. They're on the ship with the Skrulls. So, how long has he been in space? Where's everybody else at? Now, my speculation is maybe they've actually been out in space for a while fighting this battle. Out in space, out in the cosmos. We honestly don't know. We don't know where any of the heroes are. And as we've seen at the end of Avengers Endgame, we see that Tony Stark dies. All the heroes are there, and all these kinds of things. And now this obviously takes place in the future, and then so does Spider-Man: Far From Home, which takes place. God, what was it? What they say? 8 months? Isn't that what it was? Like 8 months later, after the blip, after everybody had returned. So. We don't know where the Avengers have been during that 8 months and what they've been doing, right? And my speculation is that, maybe they are out in space fighting in secret wars. Maybe all of that is actually being set up. It's something we just don't know about, Plain and simple. Something that they're going to be setting up through the course of Phase 4, going into Phase 5, and who knows what beyond that. And maybe that's what our one of our next big team up movies is going to be, is Secret Wars, and this has been speculated about too. But what is really leading to that? Well, that's the interesting thing here. That's the interesting thing here. If you see everything that's been going on, we see in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, we see the return of Helmut Zemo. He's coming back, and if you know Zemo, he is a very smart and very cunning enemy of Captain America's, and in this case, it's going to be Falcon and Winter Soldier's one of their nemesis that they're going to be fighting back against. But we've seen actually in the very end of Captain America: Civil War that they had Zemo in captivity. I can't remember it wasn't General Ross. It was I can't remember the other Ross, what his name is. I want to say it's Martin, but that's the name of the guy that's playing Ross in the movie. But the thing is, he's sitting there talking to him about, what's it feel like to see to have your plan and have spend all this time doing it and just to watch it spectacularly fail. And Zemo looks up at him and says, "Did it?" Okay, now the thing we got to remember here is they've got him locked up in captivity. They've got the raft. They've got all these different things. Now, we don't see on the raft when he was there at the very end when Steve Rogers went to break out his friends. We don't know who else is on the raft. Who else do they have there? Okay, and this to me is very interesting because this is something that actually happened again, similar to something that happened in the comic books. People are starting to speculate if Maria Hill has been a Skrull the whole time, whether she is a Skrull, how long Nick Fury has been, and that's the beauty of this story. That is the actual beauty of the story because basically what happened in the comic books was Maria Hill was basically in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. as Nick Fury was gone. Okay, Nick Fury was gone. He was out of the picture. Maria Hill was in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I can't remember exactly where Nick Fury was during all of this time, but here's the thing. If we see Nick Fury is out in space, people are asking about the Avengers. The Avengers aren't around. Where are they and what are they doing? Well, I've been talking about for a while. They've kind of been setting this up. So what happens is there's this story called Avengers Standoff. God, was it? The Avengers Standoff, the Assault on Pleasant Hill. And you can see that right there. We see everything right there. What do we see? What do you see? We see Iron Man. We see Falcon as Captain America. Ooh, and who's that right there? Oh, that looks like Jane Foster Thor. And who's that right there? That's old Steve Rogers. Okay. Well, that's the interesting thing about the story. Basically, what happened here was, in case you don't know, Pleasant Hill was actually it was a prison, and really it was more like a virtual reality type of prison, and we've seen something similar in the comic books. Hello, the Senate. Welcome to the welcome to the live stream. Thank you for being here. Now we actually seen this not in the comic books, but we've seen this in the TV show, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. How they had the LMDs and everything, and then they all got put into a simmed reality. All the agents got put into a simmed reality, and I can't remember what they called it in that show. It's been I was watching that show when it came out, and it's been a while since I think that was last season or the season before that. So we see that in the show, and here's the thing: is this prison was basically made by Maria Hill. It was called Pleasant Hill, and in this prison, it was basically like they had. Not even necessarily brainwashed, but they had basically put up a fake reality for all of these henchmen, all of these bad guys, everybody that they had caught and imprisoned. They all thought they were somebody else. You've seen, and I can't remember specific examples, but there are. All these different bad guys who are living in this, how would you say, in this like 1950s-ish type of world where we see people are they think there's somebody else. We see there's bad guys. One guy's running an ice cream shop. There's one guy who's being a mechanic, and all just has a mechanic shop, and just all these different people doing all these different things within the world. Okay, now the world here is fake. It's simulated, and what happens is the bad guys end up basically breaking out. They realize that they are being held captive, and there's actually one person in there. There's actually one person who believes, who found out that they were in a prison and it wasn't real. This wasn't their real reality. And so what he tried to do was, a Matrix kind of thing, and was going out and collecting other bad guys that were out there and trying to jog their memory and bring them back into the world, saying, dude, you're not who you think you are. You are, so and so. You are Atlas. You are, all these different bad guys. And Helmut Zemo was the guy who realized that all of this was fake. And so what he done was he started this organization of these bad guys, and what they did was they started to break out of the prison. And how they broke out was basically they got all the heroes to come there and started fighting against them, and they actually trapped the heroes inside of Pleasant Hill while they all escaped to reality. So then at one point, all the heroes, all like the Avengers and everybody, were stuck in Pleasant Hill thinking that they were somebody else. And I can't remember who it was who came in and saved them. I want to say it was Rogue, but it wasn't Rogue. It may have been, but basically what had happened was one of the X-Men, Professor Xavier had put them through all these trials and things like that, and was telling them like that they did to, in case they've ever get caught in a fake reality like that, ways to center themselves and realize the reality of everything. And I think that could be something that's going on here. We see that the heroes got trapped and they ended up having to break out. And this one of the X-Men is the one who started to jog their memories, because she realized like, hey, this reality isn't real. They just started to notice things. They like basically checks that things that Professor Xavier had taught them to realize that when they're in a fake or simulated reality like that. And so all the heroes ended up breaking out. Well, what actually happened in the meantime was during all of this, Steve Rogers ended up in Pleasant Hill to they were going after this little girl, okay, and this little girl's name was Kobik, and Kobik was the living embodiment of, in this case, it would be the Tesseract, but she was the living embodiment of the Cosmic Cube. And basically what happened was Red Skull used the Cosmic Cube and changed, didn't necessarily change reality, but changed Steve Rogers' reality. Because what Kobik was trying to do, because Red Skull was the only person that was ever nice to Kobik, that ever treated, the Cosmic Cube like, oh, like something, and just really loved it. And so basically what he did was nurtured, this loving spirit and, this bond with Kobik. And she actually went and, during this fight with Crossbones, where Steve Rogers was getting ready to die, he was an old man. She actually went to him and said, hey, I can help you. I can save you. I can return you back to your former self. And at this point, Steve Rogers was an old man. He had lost the super soldier serum. He aged, and he had actually given up the shield to Sam Wilson already. And Sam Wilson was being Captain America, and nobody liked it. Okay? And so basically she went to Captain America, Steve Rogers, and said, hey, I can change your reality. And at this time, she was basically, she was already led to believe, because she was a child. She was naive. She had been led to believe that Hydra was actually a good thing and was trying to convert people to be, Hydra agents, because Hydra wants good things for everybody. They're out there to help everybody. So she went to Steve Rogers and said, hey, I can help you. Just take my hand. I can help you. I can restore your youth. And so he went ahead and made the deal with her. He ended up coming back. He ended up just beating up Crossbones, and they all got out of this fake reality and all of these things. And then what happened in the meantime was Steve Rogers became an agent of Hydra. And this was basically Red Skull's plan was to turn Steve Rogers into this soldier who's going to help him, as become like the Hydra Supreme, and take over the world and things like that. Red Skull always has these plans that of world domination. Obviously, I mean, that's kind of what Hydra's whole mission is. And here's the other thing I wanted to point out. A lot of people always say that Hydra are Nazis, okay, and I can't really necessarily say that that's 100% true, because for a long time they were aligned with the Nazis, and we even see that in the MCU, in Captain America, the First Avenger, where basically Schmidt had a falling out with the Nazis. We've seen that. He had bigger ambitions, and basically throughout the course, Hydra wasn't always necessarily Nazis, because they weren't always just about empowering just white people. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't necessarily about that. They took in other people. It was more about being, the strong-willed and the strong people basically toppling over the weak. And speaking of which reminds me of a really great line by Philip Anselmo from Pantera: "If it is weakness that grants us the power, we thrive on what's stronger than most of the world." Truer words, my friends, truer words. Now the thing is, like I said, he's obviously bent on world domination. He used Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers eventually came out on top and took over Hydra and all kinds of other things. And then by the end of the story, we find out that it wasn't actually Steve Rogers. It was pretty much like a clone of him in a way. And that's still all unfolding right now. Almost forgot that Red Skull was still alive in the MCU. Yeah, he's still out there. And who knows what's happening to him after Vormir? If he goes somewhere else, if his story's done, it's really hard to say here. Now, the thing that's interesting here is this all took place in the comic book. Sam Wilson was Captain America, and the world didn't like it. There was a lot of pushback. Now, if you didn't read the Sam Wilson Captain America series, I got to tell you, it was written by Nick Spencer, the same guy who was writing the Captain America arc at the time. He also was the guy who wrote the Secret Empire series. Now, what happened in Sam Wilson, Captain America, was a story I didn't necessarily like it, because for me there was a lot of not really creativity in it. Because if you go and read the series, it was just basically what was going on during the election cycle of 2015, 2016, spilled right onto the pages of Marvel Comics. I mean, literally, you could watch CNN or Fox News at those times and see exactly that on the panels of that comic book. And again, that's something I just wasn't particularly into, just because it seemed a little too unimaginative for me. But that being said, that's exactly where all these rumors are starting from. Where Mark Bernard or Bernardi went on and was talking about this happening, the government not wanting him to be Captain America. And like I said, that's exactly what happened in this story. And to be honest with you, I've been wanting to see this come to life on the big screen for a while. And I've talked about this before. They've done everything to set this up. We see kind of what led to this was Shield had the cosmic cube, and they were playing with it, and it basically blew up and it exploded and just turned into a bunch of shards. And that's when Kobik, the little girl, came to light. Well, we see in the MCU that's exactly what happened. Shield had the Tesseract. They had it for a long time. They were playing with it and experimenting with it. We've seen that Selvig was there experimenting with it and playing with it, and throughout the course. And I'm not for sure if Kobik changed his reality or not, but basically we've seen there that Eric Selvig was with Hydra. He was a Hydra agent as well. And I think that, if I remember right, she actually did change his past too and made him believe that he was a Hydra agent the whole time as well. And working for Hydra, that he was a Hydra scientist. I remember that, because she did change that, and he had these memories in which he thought that he was a Hydra agent and working for Hydra the whole time, when he actually met Red Skull. And that's what gave Red Skull the idea to turn Steve Rogers into a Hydra agent. There we go. Okay, that's exactly what happened. Ryan Reynolds teased Deadpool for Phase 5. Nah, he didn't. People are blowing again. That was something people are blowing up a story. Just a tweet from Ryan Reynolds. They're blowing it up into nothing. And that's the thing, is a lot of these people are finding these tweets and just running with them, like the story about Blade being and I talked about that at the very beginning, if you weren't here, about Blade being Muslim in the MCU. This whole story was started by a tweet from some dude that has like 100 followers here on Twitter, and he just made that statement, and a lot of people just ran with it. So, but again, I'm not saying that it's completely false, but people just take these little clickbait stories and just run with them, because we got crap websites out there like We Got This Covered, Cosmic Book News, and some of these places who are just uncredible sources who take just whatever they can and just run with stories and clickbait to cause controversy to get people to click and go onto their websites. Just don't follow these websites. Don't even go to them. Don't give them clicks. That's how they get money and their credibility, is by people going and giving them clicks. They suck. Okay, they suck. These sites are essentially no different than me or you making stories and just putting them out there. That's all they are. That's all they are. And that's the thing, and that's one of the things, like with my Patreon supporters, I want to do is once I get enough and start getting enough money, I want to start a website to and you know that was my original reason for starting this channel, was to present my own theories on the MCU and at the same time debunk other theories. And that's kind of what I want to do, is not that the fake news is necessarily bad, because we've seen that some of these clickbaity things have happened, whether it's the Marvel Studios listening to some of these stories and saying, "Ooh, that's a good idea," or rather it's just that somebody read a comic book and maybe, or chances are they didn't. Chances are they're probably a normie and just went to Wikipedia or any of these other websites and just did a 5-minute click and read through and didn't actually read the comics. But again, I mean, for me, I don't really follow most of these websites and things. But again, all this story, all this setup did happen. I've been talking about this for a while. It would be great to see this happen in the MCU. For one, the reason I just absolutely love to see Secret Empire come to the MCU is because exactly what Secret Empire did for Marvel Comics, and what it did was it reset the whole landscape. It reset the whole landscape back, basically back to square one. Because there was a lot of things going on in Marvel Comics. We had, obviously, we had like tokenized characters that people didn't like. You couldn't go out and find a Bruce Banner Hulk comic series. You were getting Amadeus Cho, and just some of these different things that had happened. And this whole event kind of reset everything back to square one. We got classic Captain America, classic Hulk, classic Iron Man. There's all of these different things. Now, of course, then what happened was we did still have some of these other characters continuing on in Marvel Comics, but not really under the same premise. So it kind of reset things, which I think could be a very good thing, which I think could be something that, maybe they reset it all to integrate in the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, or anything like that, or they could use it to reset some of the characters so they could bring in new actors to play the roles. Like if Chris Evans isn't going to continue to be Captain America, which he still could in bit roles, they could get somebody else into the role of Steve Rogers and have it carry forward like that, and then integrate the X-Men and all of those different kinds of things. So it could be a very good thing. Yes, CBR is pretty bad. And the thing is like even like comicbook.com, some of these websites that have been somewhat credible in the past, a lot of them are actually just starting to go the way of clickbait. And that's the thing, is, we got to pick and choose, what we listen to. And by no means should we just completely ignore them, because, sometimes there has been, things that have happened, but again, we could all make speculations and be right 30% of the time. Hell, I made some predictions about the Captain Marvel movie before it had came out, and I was right. I made some speculations about Maria Hill being a Skrull just off of an interview that Kobe Smulders did with Jimmy Fallon, and I mean, I guess in a way I was right. Even about Nick Fury too. I mean, in a way I was right. So that's why I say, anybody can throw darts at the dartboard and make it onto the board. You know what I'm saying? We can be right X amount of times, or X percentage of the time. So, like I said, they're not completely wrong. I mean, I'm sure on a lot of these websites, some of these people actually do read comic books, and that will be the key to knowing, like, oh, hey, this is possibly what's going to happen. But again, I do believe that that's what's going to happen in this Falcon and Winter Soldier series. Now, the thing that also kind of leads me to believe that is we've seen in the Spider-Man Far From Home, we see Mysterio. He goes through and he's basically has this fake reality going on. Okay, he's got this fake reality going on, in which he's simulating everything. We can see that he's doing it. That's the same thing, with the barf technology. That's the same thing that basically happened in Pleasant Hill. That's what Pleasant Hill was. It was a virtual reality. It was simulated. The same thing that Mysterio was doing to Peter Parker throughout this whole movie. So it's out there. Zemo is already locked up. It's out there. For all we know, Quentin Beck is dead. But is he? He only sees what we want him to see. We can see he still had henchmen out there, people who were still working for him, who were part of this, how would you say, this cabal of bad guys that were still coming together to bring down maybe not necessarily the Avengers, but some of the good guys and kind of be their own good guy, which leads to what? The Thunderbolts and things like that, right? Where we got bad guys, or even the Dark Avengers, where we got bad guys who ended up becoming the good guys, or the people thought were the good guys. They basically supplanted them and were the new good guys. And they even made reference of that in Spider-Man Far From Home, where the guy who was doing all the writing, kind of their script supervisor there, was talking about like, oh, these days people will believe anything, and basically the more outrageous it is, the more they'll believe it. So I think they're definitely going to be making a play on that. So I mean, they've set every single thing up to lead into Pleasant Hill, to lead into Civil War II, to lead into Secret Empire. And that's the beauty of it. Like I said, that's something I would like to see, because it kind of resets everything. And to me, that would be a good thing, especially like given the Captain Marvel movie. We've seen kind of what a mess it was. It's like they read a Miss Marvel maybe, or maybe they just read the recent run of Captain Marvel comic book and then they just tossed it out the window. And to me, I think they could still validate that film if they did certain things for the sequel, because like I said, the first Captain Marvel movie was supposed to be like one of those phase 1 films, right? It was supposed to be an origin story. We learn where Carol Danvers is from, who she is, what she's about, and all that stuff. But throughout the course of the Captain Marvel movie, we didn't learn anything about her. We didn't learn anything about her past other than the fact that she was caught in an explosion. She was brainwashed, taken to Hala. I don't know. I can't even remember at this point. She was taken there and they made her into a soldier, a Kree soldier, and all that stuff. And we still don't know anything about her past. As far as we know, it's still all fake. Okay, and I've talked about this before. They could easily go back and redo all that, because we didn't learn anything about her past, her friends, her family, or anything other than Monica Rambeau and Maria Rambeau. Didn't learn anything about her past. A lot of people were mad that we didn't get the original Captain Marvel, and I think that's all stuff that they could still easily do, because for all we know, all those plants were still implanted in her memory from the Kree. So, I mean, my suggestion was they could go back and retroactively do some of that stuff by showing that, like, she was still brainwashed and she actually had met the actual Dr. Lawson, and maybe, perhaps, the character that Annette Bening was playing, because they did this in the comic books as well. I mean, not necessarily, but they could actually make it to where Annette Bening's character, who was Dr. Lawson in the movie, was actually her mother. And that maybe she's maybe they didn't really save her life. Maybe they actually just kidnapped her and led her to believe all of these things. And maybe she actually met the real Captain Marvel and those types of things. These are things they could easily change, because we didn't learn anything about her past, nothing about her family or anything. So they could still do that. If you ask me, they could still not necessarily save that whole story arc and things like that, and move forward, and just kind of set things a little more right, to follow and maybe necessarily respect the source material. It's totally possible they could. Will they? I doubt it. I mean, I seriously doubt it, but I think it's something they could definitely do. And again, like I said, we see that everything here has been set up. We got We got Zemo in captivity. We've got Mysterio, who's been there using it, who used that barf technology and was using all those drones to create simulated realities. We've got the Avengers, who I believe could be in space because Nick Fury didn't say where they were when Talos said, like, "Hey, people were asking about the Avengers. What am I supposed to tell them?" It's one of those kinds of things. We don't know where they are. We don't know what's going on. For all we know, maybe those heroes, right after the events of Avengers Endgame, took off and they were gone. Maybe the bad guys, or maybe the good guys, the Avengers, were the ones that were actually put in the prison, and maybe all of that was actually fake. Maybe like the whole Infinity War and Endgame and all that stuff, maybe that was already fake, because maybe, just maybe, all of the bad guys have, or all of the good guys have already been put in that fake reality that was Pleasant Hill. I'm just saying, it could be. Maybe all of that stuff had never really happened. Now, I could say a lot of people out there would say, "Oh, well, that's complete garbage." But I can tell you one thing. One thing it is not. It is not time messing with time or the time stream, or any of that stuff that people are complaining about, how it makes it a sloppy and messy story if you go through and just say, "Oh, we can fix anything with time travel." It completely does away with it if you say that these heroes were actually locked up in a prison and basically spoon-fed this reality that didn't actually come true. Because we actually seen General Ross already has the raft set up. He had guys set up in the prison. He had Scott Lang, he had Hawkeye, he had Falcon, he had all of those heroes. Maybe at some point they had already got Tony Stark. They had already got Steve Rogers. Maybe they had actually already got all of these people in this prison and they are living in this simulated reality. And maybe the bad guys have actually been out there this whole time, faking it. I don't know. It could just be me. It could just be me, because what else happened throughout that whole series when Steve Rogers was basically a Hydra agent? What else had happened was he went to Zemo and said, "Zemo, like, I need your help. We've been brothers ever since ever since we started coming up, basically like in the academy of with Hydra and everything. They were brothers. They were best friends as far as Steve Rogers knew, which wasn't actually true. But what happened was Steve Rogers went to him and said, "Dude, I need your help to do this." And he gave him a big old hug and said, "We can't be friends, and I'm sorry that you have to go through all this, but I do need your help and I need you to play along." And Zemo was sitting there like confused, and he's like, just hugged him and said yes. And you later see that Zemo comes out and says, "I had no clue what was going on. This dude was being friggin' bonkers. My worst, like my biggest enemy ever, was embracing me and telling me about this his reality, and he was basically dumbfounded by it." So I think it's totally possible that all these things have happened, and that all of these things could be happening going into the future of the MCU. Maybe we find out that the Avengers have been out in space, or maybe they haven't been. Maybe they've all been locked in this fake reality, and maybe they're the ones who were imprisoned, while maybe the world is actually going to hell, and Thanos never happened. As far as like the Thanos coming to Earth and snapping and all of that stuff, it's totally possible. It's totally possible, and not out of the. To me, it's not out of the scope of of what could happen. The Senate says Mysterio ain't dead. He'll be back by Spider-Man 3 or 4. And I feel the same way. I don't think Mysterio is dead. He specifically says in there, people see what I want them to see. I'm sure they have things there that are like tangible things, like people, we never actually seen them take Mysterio's body and do anything with it. They could all be in that same reality. And that's kind of what I think, is maybe Zemo has actually been there the whole time, just kind of scheming and planning and waiting for the right time to strike. And I think, the good guys pretty much set it up for him. Do I think they're making Sword? Yeah. I mean, and I think that's exactly, if all of this, if not all the heroes are locked up in this fake reality like Pleasant Hill, like I'm talking about, I think that's exactly what's going on, because I can't remember what is the sentient world. I can't remember. I can't remember the whole acronym there. But I mean, they're basically out there policing space, and we seen Talos ask where the Avengers are. What am I supposed to say to people when they ask? And to me, that's exactly it. Was the They were out in space helping keep cosmic threats at bay so they're not coming to the Earth. And that's why I say it makes total sense that all of these things are happening. They've led a bread trail of crumbs. Just even like even with the Jane Foster Thor getting ready to come up in Love and Thunder, I think they laid those breadcrumbs a long time ago. We got to think, who wrote that movie? You know, a lot of people complain about Thor: The Dark World, but who wrote that movie? It was Stephen Marcus and Christopher McFeely. Or is it Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely? Oh, man, I can't remember. I always get their names mixed up there. But the whole thing is they wrote that. They wrote that movie. They wrote the script for that. They were the screenwriters. They're some of the best screenwriters we've got in the MCU. And I think that that's part of what's going to play into that Jane Foster thing was, you know, we seen she had the ether in her. Maybe some lingering effects of having that in her is what caused the cancer that she's going to be, that, you know, basically she developed in the Mighty Thor story and is what led to her being Thor. You know, so, you know, while I realize a lot of people are upset about the Jane Foster Thor thing coming up, I've also talked a lot about, several times about, this is Natalie Portman we're talking about. I don't think she's going to be in for more than 1 or 2 movies, tops. And honestly, I think just going past 1, it's just not going to happen. I think through the course of the upcoming Thor movie is she's probably going to become worthy through whatever circumstance. She's going to take on the mantle, and at the same time, she's going to end up dying in the movie. And, you know, you could say, like that seems a little heavy for an MCU movie. She's gonna die of cancer and everything. Like, but look at everything we just got in the past few movies. We lost so many people, and it was so emotional the way they did it all. So it's not unimaginable, because you can see in the MCU they already brushed her off in the first place. They brushed her off, and now they're bringing her back. So it's not too far to imagine that they would do something like that where she's going to end up dying. And then, you know, if she ends up dying, Natalie Portman never has to come back to reprise her role. And she's still got the complete character arc and the closure that basically the MCU would need to basically not have to deal with Jane Foster again. And, you know, that's just me. That's why I'm not necessarily against the idea of her coming in to be Thor in the next movie, even though, you know, we all know the whole premise is silly, you know, because Thor is his name and all that stuff. But we really need to get into that. But mean either I just call it Shield in space, right? Yeah, it's basically Shield in space. So again, I mean, to me that's just one of the beauties of all this stuff going on, because these are stories that I actually wanted to see come to light anyway, and I think that we could be getting that, or just like some sort of iteration of that. And to me, that actually plays out perfectly. And it just plays into so many things so well that could be leading into these Phase 5 movies, into Phase 6, into the X-Men, into the Fantastic Four, all of these things. Because if you think about it, if all of these heroes were in the simulated virtual reality, that's probably why we never seen or heard of the Fantastic Four and Reed Richards and just all of that stuff. Why we never heard of the X-Men is because they were already in a fake world. They were already living in a fake world where things weren't necessarily happening. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I would love to see that. The Senate says, you think Marvel will introduce a top-tier Spider-Man villain like Green Goblin, Doc Ock, or Electro when they run out of villains that weren't on screen? I think they could. A lot of that really depends on what Sony wants to do and how much they want to play ball with everything. And, you know, as we can see, if they were smart, they would. The tricky thing is if Sony's in kind of a weird spot, as well as the MCU is, with the character of Spider-Man. They either have to continue to play ball or come up with some sort of rules that they're going to do for bringing Tom Holland Spider-Man, leaving his story separate. You know, if they want to do some Sony movies, is leaving him separate in that world. And maybe that's an alternate world. Maybe what's going on in the Sony Spider-Man verse, maybe that's where they can do a Spider-Verse movie, you know, an actual Spider-Verse movie, or even like Spider-Geddon that recently happened in Marvel Comics, and just some of those alternate reality things that go on there. So they can still have their Spider-Man world that takes place in an alternate reality, while the Tom Holland Spider-Man is also in the MCU doing things that are more maybe larger continuity type of things. But in the end, Sony, I think Sony needs to just continue playing ball. I actually just recently seen a story. God, was it on Cinema Blend where they were talking? It may not even been that. It had to have been because I don't read most of those other sites. Where they were talking about. It might not have even been that. It might have been somebody I just seen share the story on Twitter, where they were talking about the Submariner, Namor, basically coming in to the MCU and kind of the legal rights with, I believe, is it Universal that owns that, and bringing him into the MCU and how it can't happen. Now, that's completely possible, but I kind of feel like if that other studio does have him, they haven't done anything with him, and in the end, it might be better for them to either play ball or to just sell the character, which they would obviously want to sell the character for a huge lump sum of money. But again, I'm not sure that Disney, Marvel Studios, but Disney more than likely is not in the position to be spending a lot of money with all the money that they're putting into these properties and things that they have bought up with the Fox acquisition, with launching their own streaming service and things like that. But it would be better because what's Universal going to come out with a Namor story and not have anybody else in it, really? I mean, they'll probably have they probably still got some other characters at their disposable, but it just, at this point, it doesn't seem likely. It's either you play ball or you don't. Just like who owns, the Incredible Hulk and things like that. You either play ball or you don't. I mean, and for something like the Incredible Hulk, I just feel like you don't necessarily have to, I don't know. They don't necessarily have to play ball. I guess it could all be, maybe they just want to build their own universes, and there's nothing wrong with that because we can see, like, at this point, the Marvel Studios has so many things at their disposal. It becomes to be so big that how can they necessarily do justice to all of these properties without putting out 4 or 5 films a year? Because if they were all in separate studios' hands, we got the Sony, we've got Universal, we've got the Fox properties and all. If they were all still separate, they can all be putting their own production into these movies, and we'd be getting more of these movies per year. But if Marvel Studios is doing it, they're probably not going to want to put out more than 3 films per year anyway, maybe 4 tops, and that's like really pushing it. Where it would be better if it was spread out through the studios, so then there's kind of everybody reeling you in, and the money is going to kind of everybody across the board, all the different studios, which everybody benefits. Everybody benefits from that, and that's the tricky thing is, I think all of these things could happen. They've led everything up to it. We see Nick Fury in space. We don't know where the Avengers are. I believe the Avengers are in space. Avengers being in space. Why would they be in space? Secret wars. We know the Grand Master is still out there, and what's the Grand Master like to do? He likes to play games, right? The Contest of Champions, and I've never read Secret Wars. It's something I need to get back on Marvel Unlimited there and go back and read that story for myself. And I did a video on this before about what if. Yeah, I know. What if it's actually the Grand Master and the Collector who actually get together? Maybe they have somebody else who wants to get involved too. Somebody else who likes watching, who just likes the sport like Loki does, and maybe they're actually out there manipulating things to create this Contest of Champions where they have, they have super villains, super good guys, and just superheroes and all that stuff pitted against each other for the fate of the universe. To me, it's not out of the scope of possibility of things to happen. Leading into this, I mean, they've literally built all these things up, so the possibilities are realistically endless when it comes to these things. So, hearing some of these new speculations, people talking about these types of things, it's nothing new. All it is you got to not be a normie. You got to go pick up a comic book and read it. You don't even have to pick up the comic book. You can go to Marvel Unlimited and read all the comic books that you want to for $9.99 a month. And no, I'm not just sitting here plugging Marvel Unlimited, but it is pretty cool. You can go in there and read thousands and thousands of different titles. But again, all of this speculation is coming from things that actually happen in the comic books. That's why for some of us who have actually read some of these stories, it won't come as any surprise. Though we do know that the MCU is going to obviously do things differently than what happened in the comic books. See, we got a few more people coming in. War Stew confirmed. It is confirmed. It is confirmed, Stu. we're getting Pleasant Hill. We're getting Civil War 2, and we're even getting Secret Empire. and we're gonna reset the whole MCU. That's what's gonna happen. Confirmed. I'll get my source to come in here and confirm it. Which, if you guys know my guest, it's we got this covered's inside source, and he knows his stuff. Again, welcome to the stream, War Stew. The Senate says I read Spider-Geddon. It's pretty cool. I thought Spider-Geddon was pretty good. It was the first big event that I was actually reading and like actually there for as it unfolded. I thought it was pretty good. It was a little lackluster. I mean, I think it could have been a little bit better, but again, it wasn't one of their larger events where they were bringing in every single title to tie into it like they just did with War of the Realms. So, which is probably something that we might get in the near future as well. Which is why Secret Empire would be like perfect for them to do. But yeah, overall, Spider-Geddon wasn't a terrible run. Just a little lackluster on just the way it finished and everything. Tracy Woody, well, welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here, Tracy. And again, if you guys don't know, Tracy Woody is one of my awesome Patreon supporters, and you guys should go on and be one of my Patreon supporters too. There should be a link down in the description here where you can go to my Patreon and support me and support the channel. One of the things I want to do there is one of these days soon I want to start doing some live streams there, or just releasing some of the videos exclusively for my Patreon members days earlier than what the normal viewers are going to get. But one of the other things I want to do is use that money to upgrade some equipment and just different things like that. But one of my ultimate goals is to if I ever actually become monetized here on YouTube, is to not have to put ads in my videos. Now I know the one advantage of the ads is you make money for just people clicking on your videos pretty much and they see the ad. But I don't like watching ads, and I think even once I reach 1,000 subscribers, I still may not have enough traffic to justify putting those in there to make pennies on ads. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong. Maybe, and I'm not saying I would never put ads on videos, but for the most part, I don't really want to put ads on videos. I mean, I want to bring you guys videos ads free. But again, Tracy is my first Patreon supporter, and again, Tracy, I do truly appreciate your support. And in case you guys don't know, Tracy is one of the locals here where I live at. A local citizen, and what she does, she actually runs a Facebook page where it's called AV illegal dumping, and basically, and what they do is they go out and they do some awesome work. They get together and they go out into the desert here where we live at, where people are just, they're just dumping their trash. Instead of taking it to the landfill, they're just dumping their trash in the middle of our desert. Now, I will say our beautiful desert, where some people may disagree with that and say it's not beautiful because maybe they just lived out here their whole lives and they don't like it out here. I felt the same way about my hometown, but Tracy's definitely doing some pretty awesome stuff out there with our local community. And again, I do appreciate you being a supporter, Tracy. The Senate is just saying hi. Aggressively Reaction said they made $5 billion off of 4 movies this year, and Star Wars has not even come out yet. Their money is straight. We are not even talking toy and amusement park money. Yeah, and the thing is that they've spent so much money. And that's part of the reason why I think they're doing some of the things. They've got to start making money back. They have investors and things like that. And while I'm sure the investors don't mind all these things going on because they are going to make money on the back end, I don't know that they're in the position to be going and just buying up characters and all that kinds of stuff unnecessarily, I guess. Unnecessarily, and that's one of the biggest factors there. But yeah, I mean, they're doing good, but making $5 billion off of those movies, they still spent tons of money making those movies. So I mean, there is some payoff. I mean, at some point they're going to have to the scales are unbalanced right now, and they're going to have to balance them out, and they're going to have to balance them out with making some money. Not that they aren't making money, but they're going to have to, I mean, they need to be, and they are raking in the dough, but they need to be smart about it too. Once you went out there and basically dug yourself into that debt, you still got to dig yourself back out. But they're not hurting. I just don't know necessarily that they're in the position to be spending tons of money. 19K Fox, welcome to the live stream. Good morning to you as well. And I hope, again, for all of you, I hope you're all doing well today. It's Thursday, man, almost at the end of the week. Time for the weekend. In case you guys don't know, this Sunday I'm going to be going to Disneyland. I'm going to be shilling like a villain at Disneyland. So look forward to some live streams coming there from Disneyland. I'm gonna do something. Maybe I'll go out there and show you guys what it looks like and show you guys how dead Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is. We'll find out the truth. We'll find out the truth. But it's been a while. We used to be annual pass holders. We used to take our kids all the time, and I think we haven't been annual pass holders for this will be our second season. And basically, that was because at the time on California Adventure side, they had a lot of stuff closed down as they were getting ready to revamp the whole Pixar area. I know right now they've got I think it was like the Bugs Life section roped off where they're building some more like Marvel type of stuff there, and then they also obviously Galaxy's Edge hadn't been opened, and they're always kind of doing just like little construction things there, and so we just didn't do it last year. We didn't renew last year, and we didn't renew this year, just based on that, like and don't get me wrong, because Disneyland does a lot of cool things to for annual pass holders. If you go there regularly enough, they've got plenty of shows and stuff, but they always kind of change things up a little bit, so it's not always the same experience. Something I like, but like I said, this Sunday I'm gonna be there shilling like a villain, and you guys look forward to some streams for that. Um, uh, Tracy Woody says, "Me too. I gotta go slay this." So go slay the dragon. Have a great day. But you as well, Tracy. Have a good day. The sentence says, "Dirty normies." Aggressively relaxed says, "Namor hashtag super necessary." Oh yeah, he's totally necessary. For the MCU. I mean, they definitely need that character. To do so many things with. There's so much that they have to do, and it's to me, it's actually kind of one of those things, kind of like the Fantastic Four and even the X-Men. Like, man, at this point, you've got such this rich history so far. How are you going to bring in these people who are literally are the history of Marvel and bring them in all willy nilly all of a sudden out of nowhere? It just seems like they're kind of painted themselves in a corner, but we'll see. They've done a pretty good job so far. We'll see how they're going to paint themselves out of that corner. And like I said, I think this whole prison thing, like I was talking about with the raft and just that simulated reality, could be one of their ways out. 19K Fox says the truth is out there. Yes, it is. Okay, that was a really bad. That was a pretty bad whistle job for the X-Files, wasn't it? Perp Mind says, "Yerp." The Senate and welcome, Perp Minded. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here. The Senate who says, "Who would you want Keanu Reeves to play in the MCU?" Warstu had a veto on him as Moon Knight, and I think that's great. I think I seen somebody else too. The Den of Nerds actually talked about that as well. Yeah, and as well as Warstu. I think that is actually a great idea. It's a great fit to have him come in and do that character, because a lot of people have been talking about it'd be great to have him come in as Adam Warlock or any of these other characters. He would be a great fit to be Moon Knight. I mean, it's actually ingenious, and why that speculation hadn't been there a lot longer is beyond me, because yeah, he would be a great fit for that. But honestly, I mean, he'd be a great Doctor Doom. He'd be a great Reed Richards. There's so many things that he could be great at, because he's kind of older. He still has that young look. They could de-age him a little bit, and then then eventually after one movie bring him back into just his normal looks. So they don't have to spend all that money on that technology. So yeah. Yeah, Keanu Reeves as Moon Knight would actually be really good. It is something I'd like to see. Are you reading the Galaxy's Edge comic? No, I'm not. I haven't been reading that comic, and as a matter of fact, I don't really read much of the Star Wars comics. There is actually one that I want to go read. I was going to buy the single issues, but I realized it had just ended. Like on the last two issues is when I had heard about it and the great story that it was. But I'm going to wait for trade paperback. But I want to read that Vader Dark Visions. I heard that story was absolutely great. They're like, it's only 5 issues, but they're self-contained stories about Anakin just being an absolute psycho, and it's just sounded great. So it's something I definitely wanted. I definitely want to read. But the Galaxy's Edge comic, I haven't read that, and honestly, I don't think I've seen any reviews on that Galaxy's Edge comic or anything either. But I would definitely like to see about some of that. Maybe when it comes out on Marvel Unlimited, maybe I'll check that out. Sen says, "What's up, Perp? I can't evil whistle, so that's good enough." Yeah. Aggressively relaxing says Reeves should be Reed. Yeah, and I think that would work too. I mean, there's several characters out there that Keanu Reeves could do a good job at. As I said, we all know he's older now, but I mean, he don't look old, and it wouldn't be hard for them to de-age him a little bit. And he's just kind of, I don't know, man. How could anybody hate on Keanu Reeves? You know, he's just a great dude. I didn't actually meet him, but I seen him down in Hollywood one day. I didn't want to interrupt his lunch while he was sitting there eating. It probably would have been dinner actually, but I did see him at this little pizzeria that's actually just like across the street from Hustler Hollywood, if that even still exists. But apparently, it's like his favorite pizza joint out there in Hollywood, and I just seen him sitting there eating, I seen him. I was like, oh hey, I seen him, and I waved, and like I said, I didn't want to interrupt him, but he's seen me and he knows me, and like he's seen me. He pointed me out and gave like a pretty big emphatic wave, and I was like, hell yeah, dude, like sweet, because there's a whole lot of other people out there, stars and stuff, that see and be like, whatever, dude, or just kind of ignore you. But yeah, I'd love to see Reeves really play a whole lot of these different characters. Nobody too young, because I mean, he could be in the MCU for the next 10 years or whatever. But does he really need to be? I don't know. He could just be one of those characters that's maybe just kind of a background character that pops in every now and again as well. It's totally possible. But I would like to see him come into the MCU. Senate, boy, you don't sleep. Cody Fern would be a perfect Adam Warlock. I don't know who Cody Fern is. Maybe I need to go. I'll have to look that up and get back to you on that one. I'm not sure what he's been in. No, I don't. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Vader Dark Visions is pretty cool. Yeah, like I said, I've heard a lot of the stories about that, and I would like that. Zac Efron as Wolverine. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I like Zac Efron as an actor. He's a pretty good actor, and he's in pretty good shape. And I know it wouldn't take much for him to bulk up a little bit and just be completely shredded. Like if you've seen Baywatch, like imagine that with put on an extra 10, 15 pounds of just raw muscle. I think he could pull it off. He's still a little on the tall side for him. Daniel Radcliffe has been tossed around out there. He's like the perfect height. He's got the acting chops for it. But would people like it? I don't know. People don't want to see what's his name, the vampire being Batman. So it's hard to say, but. I'm not into fan casting myself. I honestly really don't care as long as whoever they get comes in and just nails the role and does a good job. That's all I ever really want. But again, Zac Efron as Wolverine would be good. Did he kill a man with a pizza? Who? Oh, who? I'm missing that one. Pert Malone says, just watched American Horror Story Apocalypse. He's in that season. I don't watch TV shows. I just don't do it. Like I watched most of the Netflix Marvel stuff, and I honestly most of it I didn't really like. I mean, I know Jessica Jones season 1. I actually thought that was really good. The first season of Luke Cage I thought was really good. The Daredevils they were all right. Punisher, if you ask me. And not for nothing, because I mean I love John Bernthal and I thought he was a pretty good Punisher, but that show, it was soft. That's just not that's just not Punisher. That's hashtag not my Punisher. But and again, I didn't watch season 2. I only watched season 1. And obviously we know Iron Fist. That was kind of a crap shoot as well. So episode 1 of American Horror Story. What about Keanu Reeves as Dr. Doom? Yeah, again, Keanu Reeves, I think he could nail a lot of those characters. Dr. Doom, especially that, because Dr. Doom is a good, intelligent, menacing villain, and at the same time, he's not always a villain. That's the beauty of it, and that's the beauty of some of the bad guys that they have in Marvel Comics. Says that sounds fire. Send it. The first 2 seasons of American Horror Story are amazing. The rest is pretty good. David Tennant was the best thing in Jessica Jones. I did like his character in Jessica Jones. I never had heard of him before, but I thought that the character he played and just the way he came on and personified that role, he was absolutely great. And he's one of those guys they need to bring into the MCU. Is he would be a great villain, but could he be a good Reed Richards? I don't know. I think he could be. The Punisher season 2 sucks. I'll take your word on that one. I'll eventually probably watch it. But Daredevil is a masterpiece, and I love it. Yeah, again, I thought it was pretty good. I did like season 1. I thought it was pretty good. To me, it just seemed, again, for me, I think for the most part, it's the budget that these have, and just the way they're formatted and everything. I think I just like seeing things on the big screen, and I'm not sure that these tales brought to the big screen would have been any better. So don't get me wrong there, but I mean they did have a pretty good cast on it too, and nothing wrong with that. It's just the shows themselves, they don't really do anything for me. But again, I guess that's all I really have for this video. If you guys have any other speculations that you'd like me to speculate on about some of the things that I talked about today, or just how I think maybe some of any of the other comic lore may go on into the future of the MCU, please let me know down in the comments below, or you can even get a hold of me on Twitter, Facebook, or any of those, Instagram, even through any of those different ways. You could certainly do that. And if you have any other topics that you'd like me to discuss here on the show, would be much greatly appreciated. I would appreciate that. Sometimes it does get kind of hard keeping ideas out there without you guys, without you viewers, because you viewers are kind of what help feed me and help bring energy to the show. And again, I do appreciate it. That's all I have for today's live stream. Don't forget that today's Thursday, right? Tomorrow, I will be doing a live stream as well here in the morning. But don't forget, every single Friday night at 8 p.m. I do the Trailer Park Live prime time, where I go over some of the comic books that I pulled for the week, and then I get in and once again interact with you guys, the awesome audience. And I do appreciate you all being here anytime that you are here. That's all I have for this video, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel today. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and click the little bell so you get notifications anytime I've uploaded new content. And while you're at it, make sure that you give it a thumbs up, or if you don't like this video, give it a thumbs down. It's all good. But also make sure you leave some feedback down in the comments below and share this video with a friend, because as soon as we hit 350 subscribers here on the channel, I'm going to be giving away a copy of Warner Brothers Shazam. And to get entered into that, you have to make sure that you're subscribed, and make sure you leave a comment in this video or any video until I hit 350 subscribers. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.